Hello and welcome to Quarrelsome Rhinoceros Stitches, episode number 30. My name is Monica, I'm the host. This is a knitting podcast primarily. There are several other crafts that I do participate in, but it is mostly knitting. So yeah, welcome to episode 30. It has been about a year and a half since I started releasing podcasts, and it's really exciting. It's exciting that I've been able to keep it up for this many episodes. So, I have quite a bit of content. It has been almost a month since I last podcasted, so I have quite a bit of content to get through today, and I'm hoping that I'm not going to rush through it, because that's what I did yesterday when I tried to record this video. And it ended up only being 20-minute long episode for like 6 or 7 different projects to share with you. So I hope I will be able to take my time this time. As always, you can find me on social media. I am on Instagram as Quarrelsome Rhino. I'm also on Twitch as Quarrelsome Rhino. I don't generally do very much knitting or designing or anything on Twitch. I mostly just play video games. So if you want to come hang out with me and play video games, then you can find me on Twitch as Quarrelsome Rhino. I am also on Ravelry as morux, M-O-R-U-X, and you can find me over on my blog at skeinofthought.com. And I will put links to that down in the description box below. That is also, I put all of my notes for my podcast on my blog, so you can see links to everything I talk about and everything that I'm working on down there in the description box. There will be a link that will take you directly to the part of my website that I put all of the show notes on. So, with all of that out of the way, welcome to episode 30. I have 2 finished objects to share with you, and then I have 4 works in progress. And I have a bunch of acquisitions since it was just my birthday, and yeah, I've got plenty to share today, so let's get right into it. The first thing I'm going to share with you today is I'm not going to be able to share the finished object. I will put a picture in right here. I have already gifted them to my grandmother. She bought some yarn for me. It is called Done Roving Yarns in the Frolicking Feet. It's not colorway. The Frolicking Feet line. There we go. And it is in the black currant colorway. These are my leftovers from them. They were 2 50-gram balls that were dyed exactly the same, so you got matching socks, and this is a worsted weight yarn in the color Currant. I do apologize for any traffic noises. It is quite warm here today, so I have the windows open, but I do live on a fairly busy street. So, anyway, so there is that. That is, it's got these lovely, like, pinks and purples and gray tones in there, and they turned out really well, and as I said, I'll put a picture up. If you follow me on Instagram, I've already shared a picture of them. I tried to take a couple before I gifted them away, so those were actually really fun to work on. So I worked on them 2 at a time. I cast them on toe up, and I did a German short row heel because it was the only one I had the pattern for, and I also have done a German short row heel for my grandmother before, and she said that it fit pretty well. So I did that, and then I did, after the heel turn, I did 2x2 rib up until I wanted the, like, cuff to start, and then I did a 1x1 rib for about 5 or 6 rounds before I bound off. I actually really like how they turned out. I'm hoping that they fit her really well. I haven't actually asked if she put them on yet, but it is summer, so I'm doubting that she actually put them on. But yeah, so that was my project that I finished before vacation. I also, before vacation, I finished another project, and I haven't actually woven in any of the ends. I haven't blocked it yet, but you may recognize this if you've been watching for for a while. This is my Imagine When shawl. So for years, my mom has been asking me to knit her a sweater, and I have not knit her a sweater. But she never asked me to knit her anything else, so I didn't knit her anything. I mean, I knit her a hat one year for Christmas, but I didn't really knit her anything else because she just kept asking for sweaters, and I did not feel like I had the patience to knit a sweater for someone else. So, especially when she doesn't live near me, so I can't take proper measurements of her. So, anyway, but then finally, I asked her why she had never asked for a shawl, and she basically just responded, I don't know. So I gave her a list of shawls that I would be willing to knit for her, ones that were easy to take care of, ones that are probably don't need to be blocked as often, and she chose the Imagine When by Joji Locatelli, and I absolutely love all of Joji's designs. I think she's a brilliant designer, and yeah, and so this shawl is probably one of my favorites that I've knit. It is very simple, very easy to follow, and I memorized the pattern fairly easily. That being said, I do memorize patterns really easily. So it was easy for me to memorize the pattern, but if you have a harder time memorizing patterns, you'll probably have to reference it quite often. But yeah, so this is knit in, so here it is. I guess I should show it first. So here is the completed shawl. So excited that it's finished. So this is Knit Picks Stroll Tweed in the Marine Heather colorway. And it is a little bit greener than it tends to show up on camera for whatever reason. But not too much greener. It's a little more like tealy than it's showing up. But yeah, so this is a really cool pattern. So you start here at this corner, and you work short rows to make these other sort of like triangle sections, and it is really cool. It has this really cool picot edging, and I wanted to make something that was easy to care for. So because my mom is not a knitter, so I've found that it is better to knit things that are easy to care for those that are not knitters, in order to keep the life of them quite long. So I think this will just need one blocking, and then it should be good to go. It might snap back into its small shape, but then I'll just tell her to soak it and lay it out on the back of her couch, and it should be fine. But yeah, so there is that. I still have to weave in the ends. I think I've already said that. I got interrupted due to camera weirdness. But yeah, so there is that. I'm really excited that it's finished finally. I don't know if I have already said this, but I was on this row of eyelets the last time I shared it with you, so I have knit all the way to the end. And like I said, this has a very specific start and finish point, so you need a very specific amount of yarn. So I used 2 balls of the Knit Pick Stroll, which is about 100 grams, but then I had to use part of a 3rd ball in order to do this much of the bind off. Like really not that many stitches, but it still required a little bit more than what I had. So I have a little bit of extra ends to weave in, but that's not such a big deal. But yeah, so another finished object for this year. This is probably the last gift knit that I'm going to do this year. I don't know that I'm going to knit very many Christmas presents this year. Normally I do like to knit at least one present for Christmas, but I just don't know if I have the energy to do it this year. So there is that. That is finished object number 2. So now I will be moving on to my works in progress. So I've got 4 works in progress to share. One of them you have seen before, the rest of them are ones that I've shown in various states. Actually, I guess 2 of them you've seen before. The first one I will share is my 2-color brioche cowl that I shared a little bit of last time. I'm going to talk about this one fairly quickly because I don't think I've put too much work in it, into it since I last shared it with you. So I think I've added about 1 or 2 inches on, and it is just a cowl done in the round in 2-color brioche. I cast on 200 stitches. I knit 1 row in the gray color and then did the setup row for the brioche, and then I've been doing 2-color brioche. I don't have a whole lot of yarn left. So these are the yarns that I'm working with. This one is the same yarn that I used for my old romance sweater. This is the, this is Dingo Dye Works in the pinky colorway. Just this lovely gray, solid gray. And then this one is a hedgehog, I believe. I got it as a present during Christmas time for the Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted. It was a swap with a friend of mine who was done making whatever they needed out of it, and they gave me their leftovers. So there is that. That is pretty much it. I'm knitting this on a US 7, I believe, needle, which is a 4.5 millimeter. So it's gonna be nice and drapey. I think it'll be nice to wear under my jacket in the winter time. It'll be fairly warm. But yeah, there's not too much to say about this. It really is just 2-color brioche. I wanted to make something in brioche, or I wanted to knit brioche, and I didn't really know what pattern I wanted to use. So I just found some scraps and started going. But yeah, so this is living in another thing that I got from the Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted last year, from the Silver Shed USA. That's the tag that's on it. So that is that project bag. It's really nice for like 2 at a time socks, or like a small shawl project, or this cowl. It's a really good size project bag. I like this size for a bag. But yeah, so there is that. There is one work in progress. The second work in progress I will share is a sock that you have not seen yet. And every time I get up, I keep meaning to find the tag for this yarn, and I keep forgetting. So this is the yarn I'm using. I think it's Ericunia Yarns in Huasco Sock. I think that's what it's called. Actually, why don't I get the tag while I'm thinking about it? I was right. So here is the tag. This is in the color Guacamayo. So this yarn is pretty great because they don't actually have dye lots. So it is really good for that one skein project. It is 75% wool, 25% polyamide. There we go. Huasco sock. Alright. Spun and hand painted in Turkey. So there's that. So here it looks like is what it looks like in the cake. It is sort of a lovely undyed with speckles, and then there are bits that are blue, pink, and yellow. It's knitting up kind of like confetti. So here's my sock so far. I'm very close to adding in the heel. I think that on the next round I will add in the heel, but there is that. I'm using my little unicorn stitch marker by the corner of craft just to keep track of which side I'm putting the heel on, and also to look at while I'm knitting because it's just so cute. I got this quite a long time ago. She's using different clips for them now. I think she uses like the lever back earring wires now, so it's a lot easier to fit them onto your needles and stuff. I have gone back and forth whether I want to change the clasp that it's on, because I use the sort of light bulb shaped stitch markers most of the time, and those are the ones that I'm put my stitch markers on when I make them, but I haven't done that yet. I just really like looking at my little unicorn while I'm knitting, and I really like this. It looks kind of like a confetti cake to me. But yeah, so I cast on 64 stitches on a 2.25 millimeter needle. These are Chow Gu fixed circulars. It's a US 1. It's got a really long cord, which I assume would be better for like 2 at a time socks, because it is a little bit unwieldy trying to get these socks, trying to do one pair of socks on this really long needle. This actually was a gift from my grandmother for my birthday that I didn't have when I first cast on this sock. So I cast it on double points, and I think you can kind of tell where I switched over. It is a little bit bigger here, like a little bit smaller where I switched over to magic loop. But yeah, so there we go. That is this wonderful confetti sock. Yeah, there we go. Next, put this back in its bag. So I'm holding this in my Hannah Lisa Haferkamp bag that I got. I believe I got it as a part of a kit with some yarn, but I cannot remember now. But this is my Hannah Lisa Haferkamp bag. This is not a normal one that she carries in her shop, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure this was an exclusive part of a kit. And then here are the little pins that I have on it. I have my little David Bowie and my little black bear. I had a couple of other pins over here, but I don't really know what happened to them, so I'll have to try and find them and put those back. But I really like that bag. This bag is my favorite one for socks. So there is that. So next, set it just out of my reach, of course. Next is my own design. I have showed this to you before. This is a shawl called Beneath the Black Lake. It is Harry Potter inspired, as you might imagine. When I showed it to you before, I had made it all the way to the lace. I decided to rip back because I didn't like the shape of the shawl. I'll try and figure out what episode I showed that to you in and put it in my show notes, which again will be down below. But I have recast it on. I'm not very far, but I really like the shape of it this time. And I'm trying to test knit it myself. So I've written the pattern. I had it tech edited a few months ago now. I'm pretty sure I got it tech edited in April, a few months ago. And so now I'm looking at it again with fresh eyes and trying to test knit it while I knit up the sample. I had knit up most of the sample before, and then I didn't like the shape of it. And then I ripped back and I redid it. I still didn't like the shape. And then I finally rewrote the pattern, sent it off to the tech editor and said, I don't have a picture of it. I'm very sorry. But yeah, anyway, so there is that. This is what I have so far. So this shawl is more like a wrap. So it's going to be, this is the end here. It is going to increase until it gets to a specific number of stitches for a few repeats of the lace pattern. And then it'll stay at that width for the rest of the shawl until you get to the other end where you're going to decrease to a point. So this is like the side, I guess. But yeah, so there is that. Actually, that's the top. There we go. So yes, I'm very excited about this. I'm working on it pretty slowly because I want to make sure that I am test knitting it properly. I will, once I'm done and take pictures of it, I will probably ask for test knitters. If I can't find anyone, I may just go ahead and publish the pattern anyway, because I have gotten it tech edited and I've test knit it myself. So I am fairly confident that there won't be any errors once I'm done with that. So there is that. Those I am knitting on a pair of ChowGoo interchangeables. This is the 4mm, the size 6. If you haven't noticed, there's a theme in the needles that I'm using. I really like ChowGoo's. I love their cables quite a bit, and I like that the points aren't as pokey as some other needles might be. I will say that they're not great for like intricate lace work because they don't have a pointy needle, so you can't really get in underneath all of those crazy stitches that lace has. So I do prefer them for straight just knitting, no lace. But there is that. Again, I apologize for the noises outside. It's hot and I don't want to close my windows. So the next work in progress I have not actually showed to you before. It is something that I started while I was on vacation with some yarn that I found at the local yarn store that my friend Carrie and I went to. Oops, pulling my stitches off my needles. That my friend Carrie and I went to one of the first days that I made it there, and we spent a good 2 hours in the yarn store while the boys were back at the house playing video games. So we went to the yarn store and it was really, really fun. It was a cute little yarn store that there were a lot of like alpaca blend yarns. There were a lot of mohair blend yarns. And yeah, there was just a lot of yarn there. It was a pretty small space, but they packed a lot of yarn into it. So it was really fun to walk around and look at all the things. So I ended up picking up a skein of yarn and starting a new shawl. So this shawl is the Wingspan Shawl by Maylin of Tricoterie Yarns, Tricoterie Designs, I can't remember. If you look for Wingspan, you'll find it on Ravelry. It is basically supposed to look like a dragon wing. It's these concurrent sort of triangles that you do short rows with. And it actually is fairly simple. If you've never knit short rows before, it's a good way to start them without having to learn how to wrap and turn, because you just kind of ignore that step in this pattern. So here it is. So I've knit 3 and a bit triangles. So I'm doing each triangle with a different stitch pattern. So this first one is done in stockinette, and this one is done in garter. The next one is sort of reverse stockinette stripes. I mean, obviously on the back it is regular stripes, but I wanted this side to be the front. And then this one, you won't be able to see it yet, but there are slip stitch texture on the next triangle. So there are going to be 7 triangles total. I'm working on number 4 right now. The 5th one is going to be another stripe, but the stripes will be facing this way here, so it'll actually be striped. Back with this yarn. This is what I have left of this yarn. The 6th triangle will be this yarn by itself. I haven't decided what stitch pattern to do with it yet. Maybe seed stitch, I'm not sure. And then the last will be a garter stitch section just with this black. So the black is a Knit Pick Stroll in the black colorway. And the other yarn, the special yarn, is what I got at the yarn store. It is from a dyer called Twin Mommy Creations, which is twinmommycreations.etsy.com. This is the October 4th, 2015 colorway. And yeah, so each skein is individually dyed. So when I picked up the hank, it was mostly this burgundy color. And I love burgundy. So I picked it up and I like moved the yarn open a little bit to see if it was just burgundy and white sort of all the way through. And then these pops of this gorgeous orange kind of leapt out at me, and then I couldn't put the skein down. So I kept that one. But yeah, so those are all of my works in progress, and it leads nicely into what else I got at the yarn store. So I'll move on to my acquisitions next. So yeah, so I bought this. The other things that I got at that yarn store, I bought another skein of yarn. This is from the Fiber Seed. It is this gorgeous blue and green and silver yarn that I think will be variegated. I'm not really sure. I'm really excited to knit this up and see what it'll look like. So, oh, I keep kicking that. Sorry. So I think that I'm gonna make like hand warmers and a pair of shorty socks with this. But yeah, so it's called the Fiber Seed. This is the glass colorway. It's the Sprout, which is a 90 merino, 10 nylon. And it is, you can find them on the fiberseed.com. It is their sprout, I guess, base, maybe? But yeah, so this is sock weight, definitely. And also, I really love these colors. So there is that. This one was just special. Both me and my friend Carrie got skeins from this company specifically because it was milled in Maine, which is where I live, and dyed in Florida, which is where she lives, and where I was visiting. So we dubbed it friendship yarn, and we both got a skein. She got a different color though. She actually got two, I think. She got one that was like a sort of natural plain undyed, and then she got one that was like sort of this blue-gray, like sort of variegated with some undyed in there as well, and she's gonna make a shawl out of it. But yeah, so there is that. And then they also had little mini seedlings, which were just mini skeins, and we both got the same color, and it is this gorgeous sort of dark blue with pops of neon. I'm really excited to put this into my blanket. I think that this is going to be really fun in my granny stripe blanket, which I haven't shared with you in a while, but I haven't really worked on it very much. So hopefully this will spur me into working on the granny stripe so that I can add this in. But yeah, I really like these colors. I think they are great. This one didn't come with a tag, so I don't know if there is a colorway name with it or not, but I didn't have a tag on it, so I don't know. The other things that I got, the shawl that I'm working on, the wingspan shawl, are on a pair of Addies. I've never actually had a pair of Addie. This is the Turbo Lace, I believe. And it's a US 6, which is a 4mm. But I've never had a pair of Addies. I will probably do a needle recommendation or needle review on my blog at some point, if that sounds interesting to anyone. I do like the needle part. I'm not a big fan of the cord just because it does kind of like kink up on itself a little bit. And that's one thing that I really love about the Chowgoos is that they just don't do that. But this is only the first time I'm using them. I do really like their join. The join is very, very smooth. I haven't had any problems getting my yarn up over it. But yeah, there is that. And then while I was there, also I bought a little needle keeper. So you put your needles in there when you're not using it and like snap it over. This one has cute little bows on it, bow ties on it. I really like this red one here. Anyway, I bought this because I didn't actually have a project bag for my my wingspan shawl while I was there, so it just kind of out, and I didn't want the needles or the stitches to slip off the needles. So there's that. So that has been living with my wingspan shawl. So those are the things that I bought at the yarn store. I do have a couple of other things that I bought or that I got while I was on vacation, because my birthday was not that long ago. My grandmother bought me a few things, like I said, the Chowgoo needles, but she also bought me a book that I've been wanting for quite some time. I tend to put knitting books on my Amazon wish list because I find that I won't buy them for myself, but it is a nice gift that someone else can get for me if they want to buy me a gift. So like my grandmother always goes to my Amazon wish list and looks at the things I've put on there. And like this year she got me a mug, Star Trek mug that I wanted, and a couple of other things that I needed, and also one of these books. And so I always love having the books. I never like buying them for myself. I don't know why. I think it's mostly because if I didn't put books like that on my wish list, my grandmother would probably buy me yarn. And while I appreciate that, I generally buy yarn that I know what I'm going to do with. And so if I get gifted yarn, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, and then it sits there for quite some time before I figure out what I want to knit with it. Anyway, long-winded. Anyway, so the book that my grandmother got me is the Alternate Stitch Dictionary. And there it is. by Andrea Rangel. So this book has 2 different sections in it. Or it has, first of all, it has a little bit of a guide on how to do color work, or like tips and tricks for color work. Then it has some different like patterns and stuff in it, or stitch patterns in it, basically. So there are those. I'm not going to show them too closely because it is a book that you can purchase. And then after that, they do have some actual patterns in the back. And there is only one that I would probably knit. It's this Leaves in Water cardigan. I think it's really pretty. Yeah, so I would knit that probably, but I'm not sure if I'm going to actually use this for an actual pattern book, because I actually want to design, I've been wanting to design a pair of fingerless mittens for quite some time, but I didn't really know where to get started with doing color work, and so this I think is going to be a really good resource for me for that. So I'm really excited about this book. I'm hoping that I can start working on my color work pattern by using this book. So there is that. Then, I told you there's a lot of content. So during my vacation we went to an art festival. I think it's called the Manayunk Art Festival. It was in Philadelphia, or around Philadelphia. It's about a 12-block walk. So like you start at one end, it is 12 blocks up, all art booths all the way up, and then all the way back on either side of the street. So it was huge. It was a huge art festival, and it was really, really fun. And my aunt told me, she said, I haven't gotten you your birthday present yet, so if you find something you want, then I'll buy it for you. So it took me a long time to find something that I really liked, but I did find a yarn bowl. And so here it is, my gorgeous yarn bowl. So it's got 2 holes in the side to put your needles through. From this side, you put your needles through there, and then it just kind of rests there. It has got this little spiral here to keep your yarn coming out. It is really, really gorgeous. I love this this yarn bowl. So it is made by Printemps Pottery. Printemps, yeah. So that is their information there. They are printemspottery.com. They're based out of Annapolis, Maryland, and they had a whole bunch of really gorgeous things in their booth. This was the only yarn bowl that I found at the whole festival. I really wanted something that was special, like something that I couldn't find anywhere. So I decided that I would get this, and it was the only one that I found. It looked like the only one that they had. But yeah, it was perfect. Like, we walked up to the booth and I immediately saw the yarn bowl. I was like, that is what I want. So I had to carry it back in the airplane in my carry-on so that it didn't get crushed in my checked bag. So I carried it onto an airplane to keep it safe. But yeah, so that is all of the acquisitions that I've made in the last few weeks. It's been a lot of new yarn, even though my goal for the year is to knit my stash, but I can't help but get a few skeins, right? Anyway, that is all of the yarny kind of content that I have. The rest of it is sort of life. I've kind of mentioned it several times that I was on vacation, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But if you're just here for the yarn, then all of the yarn is gone now. I have bought all of it. But yeah, so thanks so much for watching, and if you're sticking around, then great. Yeah, like I said, so I went on vacation, so I went to Philadelphia. I got to see my aunt and uncle and my grandmother while I was there. My grandmother does live in Belfast, which is about an hour from me, but she spends the summers with my aunt in Philadelphia. So that is, or well, Pennsylvania. So that is that. We went there for a weekend to a wedding. I didn't know the people who were getting married, but we got to spend a little bit of time with them, so I kind of got to know them a little bit. They seemed pretty cool. I was there with a friend as their kind of plus one. And yeah, so then I came home for a week, and my friend from New Zealand came up and visited me in Maine, and we did some touristy kind of fun things. So we went down to Bar Harbor, and I had him eat a lobster roll, which he really enjoyed, and then we went to an ice cream shop in Bar Harbor that I like to go to. We ended up finding some shopping bags that he brought back to his mom, I think, because they like to collect shopping bags from other places, like reusable shopping bags, so that they can have that sort of memory of like, oh hey, I went to that place, but they use it all the time, so it's not like it's just sitting on a shelf or whatever. But I did have to work quite a bit that week, so my friend from New Zealand kind of hung out and played with my dog, and it was a really good week. And then both he and I on the 4th of July flew down to our friends in Florida, and we had kind of a big 4th of July party, and did some fireworks, and it was really, really fun. And then the whole weekend was mostly just eating really good food and hanging out with good friends, playing some cool video games. We played a game called Overcooked, which is like you're cooking for the apocalypse, and it's quite fun, if a little bit stressful with 4 people. But it was a lot of fun, and now I'm back in Maine, as you can see. I was supposed to go back to work yesterday, but I did not. Excuse me. So I was supposed to go back to work yesterday. Obviously I did not. So while I was gone, I guess the air conditioner went out at my work, and we lost a lot of product, which is really sad, especially in our slowest season. So we lost some product, and we had to wait for the insurance company to tell us how to go about fixing our air conditioning unit so that they would still pay for it. So I have had the last couple of days to sort of settle in and get back to the normal routine. My puppy has been very excited about me being home and not actually working. We've been cuddling almost non-stop since I got back, and even right now I've got a dog basically on me right here. This is his snout. Anyway, he's very happy that I'm home. He's very sad that his friend from New Zealand is no longer at my house, because they are best friends. Anyway, I hope you all have had a lovely few weeks, and I will probably podcast again in about two weeks, back to the normal schedule, back to the normal routine. And yeah, I think that was everything I had to say. Anyway, again, you can find me as Quarrelsome Rhino on Instagram. You can find me on Ravelry as morux. I am most active on Instagram for sure. But yeah, I will see you again in 2 weeks. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.